Okay, we'll call this meeting of the German Point Property Owners Association's Board of Directors to order. We follow Robert's Rules of Order here. Please be recognized by the chair before you speak. And that's all I have. First order is to have the president's remarks. My only remark is it's been really quiet. Nothing going on of any real consequence, at least that's my opinion. As we go through and talk about stuff today, you may decide otherwise, but really not much happening. I guess that's all I have. Any public comment?
Not at this time.
No public comment. Okay. We'll go ahead and approve the minutes of the last meeting then. All those, has everybody read them? And do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
To approve, I assume?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'm way ahead of myself already. I'm going too fast. And it's your turn, Miss. Office update.
All right. For December, I'm filing claims. We know we're doing that. I filed 18 claims so far, and I have court dates for January and February that are set. I have an additional 8 that are ready to be filed once Gary signs it. And so far, we know I sent the letters out, 160 letters, to people who owe $100 or more. We've now collected a little over $4,000 of that money. I'm also working on filing what's called a statement of lien. I'd spoken with people at Land Records, and they said that I could do this, but I'm kind of working out how that has to be done. I need to check into real estate law versus contract law. So that's, and these statements of lien will be filed on those kinds of people, those owners who I can no longer get in touch with. We have 20 to 25 addresses that I've actually, in the 10 years I've been here, never successfully gotten in touch with these people. They're long gone. So we can file liens against those people. I just need to figure out how. The newsletter went to everybody. I'll be printing that tomorrow, barring any objection. If anybody wants to come in and start folding, that would be great. And also, I'd almost forgotten about this. We have a trash company called Evergreen. And I had not received a bill from them. We started with them in March because they gave us a better price. And I had never received a bill, so I've been calling them. And of course then the new fiscal year came about, and I called again today, or yesterday, I spoke with the owner. And he apologized, put me on a 3-way conversation with his office, and I said, you know, once we get this bill, you're going to mess up my budget, because I'm in the new fiscal year now. So they gave us a break, so March through June, we're not being charged for. So we are now, though, receiving a statement and a bill. So anyway, you got a little,
That's a good
a little bit of a discount.
I presume the bill is what we expected
Yes.
it would be.
Yes.
This
What are they
fiscal.
charging?
It's $20 a month for the office, and then in the summertime, we pick up also the beach. So that's an additional $20 a month. So, and that's my report.
Okay. So roundtable, do we have anything we want to bring to the rest of the board, Amy?
Well, since you started with me, I'll start with Kurt's issue, which is that the Cliffs Advisory Committee from CRE plus Kurt came up with some kind of a level of, I think it's their final report.
Well, the final report from the Cliff Stabilization Committee, which is all the communities, the Cliff communities in the county, have been meeting for almost the past 3 years,
Right.
discussing issues and having speakers. And over the past several months, they finally put together a report of things that they were going to ask the county commissioners to approve, right, wanted the county to do. And last, whenever it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, or actually all of this report was presented to the county. It was the commissioners then turned it over to planning and building to try to address a lot of the issues. And week before last, the county, or the planning and building provided their reports and their answers to the requests that were made, and basically presented them all one final time to the county commissioners for approval or disapproval. And so that went through, there was something like 17 specific requests that were made, and most of the responses were pretty much perfunctory. There were nothing earth-shaking.
It was sort of deflecting, right?
Well, a lot of them were deflecting because there's, in all candor, there's not an awful lot you can do there. And I'm being recorded, but I'll say it anyway. After 30 years of doing this, and when I began, first time I had sympathy for people. Now I don't. I have a little bit of empathy, and I've learned in this particular time, working on this committee, that I've learned to like a lot of the people on the committee who were in these dire straits. But I have to say that it's extremely hard to tell people you like that they're deluded. And it is never, 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 never buy or build a house on one of the cliffs. Never. It's just this, and one of the things that was really quite interesting is one of the issues that I fought for, which was kind of knocked down a lot of different ways, is that it's now required by state law for real estate people as well as property owners who are trying to sell their property to disclose issues for those homes. But what's interesting is that state law provided for this, or requiring disclosure, but they turned over the disclosure form and design of the disclosure form to the Maryland Board of Realtors, right? So what you see when you see the form is you just see this kind of hodgepodge of different things which are all totally unrelated, and everything looks sort of just innocuous. I mean, there's the one critical one would be, this is located on the floodplain. It's the only one that even has a hint of some kind of hazard. And so I fought to try to get shore erosion and cliff erosion and cliff stability to be added to this, but nobody on this committee would accept that. The only thing they would accept was that the county would be required to make available their brochure on building in the critical area. Okay, so that actually went through and was passed. There's also a meeting on that tonight in Prince Frederick, and I had an email from Dave Brownlee, who had sent stuff out to the committee, and I said, Dave, is there any possible way of having this, this issue revisited, so that basically the disclosure form could be redesigned, so that instead of this sort of random group of statements that you were supposed to see before you bought the house, that there would be something that would pertain more to hazards, so that shore erosion and cliff erosion would be grouped with floodplains, building on floodplains. And he said he would try to bring it up tonight. But that's one of the one. Well, in the meeting, there was one county commissioner who very vocally said, "What? If you do this, that means people may not be able to sell their houses."
Fact.
And that was what's his name? The guy with the unpronounceable name.
Slide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was he being
Commissioner.
facetious? Was he being facetious?
No, he was
It's true.
I know, but that's the point.
He was the only one of the county commissioners, who took that stance. I mean, and the thing I emailed to Dave Brownlee tonight, I said, we have to protect the innocent. But I could tell more tales, but we would go over our time. So,
Well, in honor of this event and this report coming out and the responses from planning and building, which used to be planning and zoning, I'm going to convene our environmental committee soon, and talk through some of the implications or non-implications for us, because we're downstream of these people who are trying to buttress their sand. And we haven't had a meeting in a long time, so we'll be picking up again soon, and we'll come back to you more formally at a future meeting.
Okay.
Larry,
I don't have anything, it's been great.
life is good, huh?
Yeah, life is good.
Fran?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
In fact, you go to Mexico, right?
Yes.
Dan?
Nothing.
Kurt?
The only thing I have is that, I mean, I talked to Gary about, we're trying to pick out some other areas to put in biolog check dams. And we have probably, I think probably, maybe another 10 or 12 biologs that we can use to put in drainages. And I was suggesting that we try to put one in upstream for the other drainage that comes into Leeson's Cove, and then Gary had another area up around Anchor. So we'll go and look at these areas and see what's possible. But SCLT had gotten a grant from the county water garden club, you know, to do some of this work. But we found that we had, the biologs were donated to us, so we didn't have to buy them. So I'm gonna have to turn money back in to the garden club for the unspent money. And one of the things I wanna do is I want to, you know, get Paul out and get him some work, and we'll pay him some decent cash to go and pound stakes and locate these kind of things for us.
He's not as available as he once was.
Well, he's
He has
working.
a job now,
Yeah, so.
but
Well,
I'm sure
that's
he'd
great.
still like to pick it up.
That's great, he's got a job.
So we'll see what, we'll check with him and see what what his schedule is. But if he's available, I'd like, you know, to throw some cash into his pocket while we're gonna do that. And I have to turn the other cash back in.
Well, I think, again, that's another thing we can take through the environmental committee and bring back to the board,
Okay.
unless you're planning to do it in the next 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, and I can write a check in advance and say that that's gonna be for Paul, and then I can do that. But I just have to figure out how, from SCLT's books, you know, to go through and show some kind of, you know, at least a copy of the check. So,
Good.
we'll work something out, so.
Okay. Okay, off to the committee reports then. We don't have any action items on the books, and Jeff isn't here anyway, so we'll go to the roads committee. We have a couple of things to talk about from roads, as opposed to my remarks. But first one is, we had, I think last time I mentioned that we got a road bond from Ward's Marine, so they could do riprap work on the 2 properties to the north of our beach. And they used our beach parking lot as a staging area to move those materials. They didn't do any damage. In the process of doing it, they had to bring in a bunch of topsoil. So they pushed the sand back off of the parking area somewhat and put their dirt there, and then staged it and moved it over and grassed in the new area and everything. When they were done, we found out about it when we got a call about it, but apparently people that walk up through there, we have a lot of people that walk all the time down through the beach to go out on the beach and walk down the point and back, people who live in that area. Apparently some of them saw the asphalt uncovered and remarked to the people working there that, gee, that's really nice. So they uncovered all of the asphalt and pushed the sand into the water, which gave us about 10, 12 feet more beach, but took all the sand off the asphalt. And for me personally, the real damage, if you will, was that the hump of the sand was gone. So that if a storm were to come in, it would have washed right in. So when we sent, the office sent an email to them saying, we're not happy. I talked with the foreman, Jamie, And the first thing I told him was, I can't tell you what to do about this because DPPOA doesn't want to be complicit in your illegal action. Did you have a permit to do that? Well, I didn't need a permit. Well, you most certainly did. It's not only in the acrylic area, it's in the buffer zone. Anyway, so calm down here. I was not happy about it. And,
Before you go any further.
yeah.
Is this the asphalt that we didn't know was there until there was
It's
a
been covered up for
storm,
years.
several, and then it got uncovered?
It's been revealed and covered up a few times.
Okay,
He had uncovered virtually all of it. And around the edges, especially towards the bay side to get more, it was buckled and had some issues.
Right.
And, you know, his position was, well, you would have been in trouble with the county if you'd have left it like that because you can't, the county has an ordinance that says you can't have sand on the road. And then I pointed out to him that there was no road there, it was a parking lot and a private driveway, if anything. And the county's got nothing to say about it because it's, anyway. And all I did was tell him that there were, what the complaints were. One, about a third of our beach, or what people perceived to be beach, disappeared. And two, the berm, which helps protect that area from being washed over, was gone. He said he would address it. And I again pointed out to him that we can't give you any, I'm not even talking to you about this because you're on your own. If you get caught with your, we're not paying any fines because we didn't authorize it. Well, he called me one morning and said, can you come down and take a look at what I've done and see if, what you think of this? Because we're holding this road bond, $2,500. And I went down and looked at it and thought it was acceptable, but I scouted around and actually Peter, who's here, went down with me and we looked at it and frankly, I think he's fixed it. What he did is he brought in
more sand.
he brought in multiple truckloads, I'm not sure how many, but I think actually quite a few of beach sand. It actually matches our sand perfectly. And built a berm across there and left some of the asphalt exposed as well. So I think it was a win-win for us, and unless there's an exception here, I'm going to go ahead and release his bond back to him.
Yeah, it's great here.
But that's pretty much precisely what we've argued needed to be done now that you have sacrificial beach berms put in down there. I mean, rather than, you know, any kind of hard structures, just
Right.
Right.
Berm, just a natural berm. And the sand, as we all know, comes and goes. Winter
Right.
usually it goes away, and the springtime it comes back. I'm not sure how the storms actually work that way, but that's what happens. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing was, as everyone knows, Carl Bowens is working on our right-of-ways, clearing them, and I've been watching his crew. We've had a couple of complaints, but in most cases, we've had several complaints actually, in most cases I could find no actual basis for them, with the exception of one. Judy Angelhart's property, they got a little carried away and went beyond our right-of-way onto the Angelhart's property and trimmed rather aggressively and took out some, some of us may have thought of as, you know, superfluous trash trees. They thought of it as cover for their property. We're working with them now to see what we can do to make that right. And we gave that feedback to Carl, who talked to his people, and they pay more attention now where the right-of-way is. It's not that hard to figure out because there's aerial poles everywhere which are right on the edge of the right-of-way. So, and they're out working. They were even working Sunday here, so they don't have a huge crew. It's a small crew, so they're moving slowly through the neighborhood. But frankly, they're doing a pretty good job as far as I can tell. And we'll do an inspection when it's done to make sure and catch any follow-up work that needs to be done. And that's all I have for the roads committee. So we have finance, Amy.
We still have not been able to track down the auditor who did the audit and changed the way some of the stuff gets printed out in the copy that you see. But, other than that, everything is in order, and we talked about it last time. So the first page, the balance sheet, is fine except for these weird little entries that we have to track this man down for. He may have left the company, but we'll.
I just sent Jeff an email requesting somebody else, perhaps.
Okay, thanks. So meanwhile, our expenses are where the action is, and there's been hardly any action. The main things you'll see under expenses, I believe, we talked about it at the last meeting, but they're showing up as expenses now, which is on page 3, office building repairs. It now shows the very modest bill for the blown-in insulation upstairs, the new water heater, and the new refrigerator that's Energy Star and works. And that was planned in the budget. Secondly, there is a charge under S7951 on page 5. 7955, $11,382, and that was the 15% that we previously withheld for last year's work from the contractor who did road repaving because he hadn't finished the shoulder work, which he's now finished. So that you'll see that $11,000 that we spent. It's from last year's budget, but we're now paying it, and everything else is just no big expenditures of any sort, and everything's been thoroughly discussed.
Everybody good? Can we move on? Good. Okay, environmental committee meeting.
Well, you already heard my report.
Okay,
We'll meet probably next week if I can get the committee together. We have some old new business. And frankly, because of all the LNG activity in the greater Leicester area, I just couldn't bear to convene the committee, and we will not talk about that, but we have plenty of other things. And we have a Realtor on the committee who is environmentally certified. Peg Duffy.
Peg Duffy, of course.
So, we have a very good committee. So we'll
Good.
meet, and we'll report it at the next meeting.
Okay, planning committees meet. We haven't had a meeting for a while because we haven't had a need for one. I will be calling a planning committee meeting after the roads committee meets with Jeff, and we prioritize and get some numbers around what we need to do. And I may wait till after our next meeting before I do that, so that the board as a whole can look at that, the work of the roads committee. And because we need to work on what the budget's gonna be.
What is it, you'll wait until after the next meeting?
After the roads committee meeting, before I have the planning committee meeting.
Oh, okay, all right, that makes sense.
And last but not least is the safety committee. Peter, do you have a report?
Yeah, I commend Rhea for negotiating the replacement of one of our cameras. Thank you, Rhea. That's on a warranty, so there's no expense. That was a good job to get that done. The cameras seem to be doing just about everything we expected. 2 discs have been turned over to the police, and they play things then pretty close to their chest about what they do with it. Other than that, the board may want to entertain whether they want to buy another camera or 2. I'll leave that to the planning committee. I've been asked by Ralph to attend, as those who are members or others may want to attend the meeting of the Drum Point Club on Saturday at 10 o'clock down at the clubhouse. Ralph has asked me to look into signs that would complement our signs. And that's all he said. I don't know what's gonna happen. I think our problems are shared, as I've always said. And I'll be very interested to see what Ralph has in mind and what we can do to complement each other. Our long-term coexistence, I think, should be mutually beneficial. And I think we should all work in that direction as best we can. But I haven't attended another meeting since I was there with you for some time ago. I guess it was in the spring. But that's about it. If any of you are members, I know some of the board members are here. Max Munger's a member. Larry, you're a member. Fran, you're a member, obviously. Yeah. What's your name? Yeah.
Just Bob.
I'm
Just
member.
Bob.
So anyway, I will get back to you, but thank you for the board's support in these endeavors. One other thing, we did have a very well-attended meeting of radio amateurs here. And 16 people came down, all some of the most highly qualified radio amateurs I've ever met. They are very anxious to keep this as a Southern Maryland emergency station with our facilities. And under the auspices of 3 organizations, Aries, Races, and CARA, which are all nation, except for the CARA, which is Calvin. But these are nationwide organizations, and we are in their working plan and in their documents. And we do this under the auspices of our Drum Point Radio Club. And I was pleased to see 16 guys who really know their stuff come down and examine what we have and what we can do. One of the things I'd like to do is in the spring, maybe March or April, is to put you see we have a droopy antenna across here. With the board's permission, keep this in mind if you would want to discuss it, is we put a little shoulder on one of the peaks of our roof here and then put an antenna, a vertical antenna, rather than try to work from these trees, which I will guarantee you are very problematic in a storm particularly. I don't think it'll be, certainly won't be unsightly, and I don't think anybody will even notice it's there, but it will help us with our high frequency capabilities, which is our really backup if our repeater goes down, which is in very high frequency. We would like to have a more general ham radio frequency, broad spectrum, and the Drum Point Radio Club has promised $25 to buy a used shoulder that we can put up. And
Just like an antenna mount?
yeah, it's an antenna that protects the roof from any damage. So I just throw that out to let you know that the safety committee hasn't met yet this year. We haven't had to, but it is constituted according to the minutes, and appreciating everybody's support. So that's it.
So while we're on the safety committee, I would, I'm on the safety committee as well.
Yes.
And by charter, or not by charter, but by rule, by bylaws, I guess it is, we are to have a board member on every committee. So I will volunteer to be the board member to the safety committee, if that's without exception, unless someone else would rather. So,
I welcome that. Thank you, Larry.
good. So I will take that position.
I mean Gary. Sorry, didn't you? Sorry. I got the last letters right.
You're doing great.
It's just Bob. That's-
Tom, you're doing just fine. Thank you.
Just Bob.
Can I make a formal motion on that?
Maria?
I think we are supposed to vote on the members.
Okay, you're absolutely right. Amy, you have the floor.
Not without exception. I'd like to move that we appoint Gary to be the liaison member to the safety committee from the board.
And I'll second it.
Question?
Any call for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I had something else.
All right, go ahead.
Well, I had, actually, I had two things, and this one I threw in when you said without exception, which I disagree with, but, is it possible that the complementary, the issue that the club feels their sign should complement has to do with our new signage that says that the area is being patrolled by the sheriff's office and so on?
I mean, we haven't gotten that far. They do not have the money or the planning yet to put up cameras the way we have. So the video 24 is not an issue. I think the issue is how do we let people know that they're moving from one private property to the Drum Point private property. You can do this by building a fence and a wall and barbed wire, Fort Knox style, or you can say legally, if you move from this property to this property, your responsibilities and liabilities will be different. Now, the
That's fine. It's just to me, but it doesn't matter.
This is not someone on the phone.
What's his name?
my
No,
goal
I mean from.
is to find out what are the club's primary concerns.
Oh, okay, so it hasn't gotten to
And when
that.
I find out what their primary concerns are,
Okay.
then I will look for signs that we can put up on the south end of our property or the north end of their property.
Okay.
There is one area which I'm not gonna get involved in, and that's the drug trafficking, which enters from the club side. The other partner enters from this side, they go into the woods, they exchange, and then they go their separate ways, which is a very nice way to do things. I think the police can probably figure that out. We see cars on the camera going down and walking in the woods, getting back. So, I mean, this is, but with signage and everything, we're not,
Oh,
that's up to the
okay.
police.
Okay.
I
Well, that,
think-
this has been very enlightening, so we'll
Okay.
wait to hear your next report. All right, my second issue was, and this is not for the bylaws committee, it's not a bylaws issue, but Dan and Peter and I, when I was still president, had started looking at policies and procedures wording on the safety committee because it has changed so much. And I think that probably the three of us somehow have to start looking at that again and bring it up to date and into the modern world. Not having to do with signage and drugs, but just update the policies and procedures.
There's no doubt that the PMP needs to be updated. It has become outdated because we've changed the way we do things.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
When we had several meetings when John McCall was presiding over that committee.
Now that was bylaws committee,
Right.
that's different, but go ahead.
It could be tasked with that.
And we got through about 75% of the text at the time. But I don't have a copy, and maybe Rhea does, and I can ask June if she's gone through any of John's papers. But it would be nice to see, because we had knocked on there, I think there were about 11 paragraphs that we wanted to look into, and we'd gotten down through about 7 or 8 of them. But that may be lost in history at this point, and we can start over if you want, but I just mentioned, Rhea, would you see it there? I don't think you have any probably, it's probably lost in some of John's papers.
June actually brought some of his papers by.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
But I don't think I have anything on my computer. I don't recall if
No.
you guys ever,
no, it was all pencil, we worked from drafts.
okay.
Thank you.
Well, also Dan and I had started rework, and I've been on the phone with you on some of it, so, you know, we'll mosey along and then bring something here.
Sounds good. Okay, moving on to old business, the nominating committee. Who do we have on the nominating committee?
We have, Vince Bearzone has volunteered, and I sent an email to him and 3 or 4 others, 2 of which declined, the others I've not heard from. So we have 1 person so far.
Peter, did I hear you say you would do that again, or has you thought better of it?
I think it would be in the interest of the community that I probably not continue to identify myself as the guy who, behind the scenes, is manipulating everything so that the old boy network continues or something. No, I mean, you know, if we could find new faces to get a broader reach, particularly down towards Deer Drive. Larry, if you know anybody down there.
Who do you want?
Anybody, somebody.
Tom's gone for 3 months, he'd be.
Just to serve on the committee to help find prospective
Mhm.
new board members.
I tried to get Rich or Terry, Rich, Regis Johnson and, or Terry or anybody along, there are quite a few people. There are even new people moving in down there. You know them all, I don't know them all.
There
But
was
you
a
do know
fellow,
that
one of the
community
lived
very
on
well.
Johnson Drive, said he would help. I don't know if we ever captured his
Who
name.
was it?
But I'd like
He
to
lives at
see
the
a
end of
regional
Johnson.
distribution of new neighbors. Fran, maybe you know some people that are in different areas that I deal with. I know this area best, and I don't.
You know everybody, Peter.
I don't. I know you, that's all I need, Larry. I know you, I'm in good shape. No, I mean, Fran, I don't know, Ralph is out of the question, he's up to his alligators in here. And, anyway, I'll back off.
But we need 2 more people to serve, we need at least 3 people, 2 more to serve on the committee to help find prospective candidates. Amy?
Rio had her hand up first.
That's
all
right.
right, that's fine.
I'm thinking of the, retrospectively, of the farsighted wisdom of Peter's long-standing recommendation that this nominating committee be year-round permanent committee, because
Any committee.
in that case, people would actually have to resign from the committee. And they might have some sense of ongoing responsibility if it were a permanent committee. And I don't want to work the issue now, but we do have a real issue.
Every year we run into this, every year.
I just wanted to say, we talked about it last time, I did send out an email blast asking, for volunteers. It's on our website and it will be in the newsletter, or it is in the newsletter, which will be going out this week.
Okay. Well, that's just the first step, and by June, we have to have actual candidates. And we do have 3 openings. Whose terms expire?
Larry, your term is
Larry's,
expiring, Aubrey and Aubrey Mumford, and also Dwayne Hyman's. And those are
Okay.
3-year terms.
Okay, good. Now we have it on record. What is it? It's hard to keep track. Okay, anybody have anything else about nominating committee?
Well, the bylaws say that we have to appoint the nominating committee at the December meeting. So that means that we, the board, have to have individuals not only who have volunteered, but then we have to officially appoint them to the committee, either prior to announce it at that meeting, or else actually conduct a board vote at the meeting itself, which is probably a little cumbersome. So today's December the 2nd, and the general membership meeting is December
The
the
13th.
13th. So that means
11.
in 11 days, the board has to formally appoint people to that committee. So unless we're gonna have another physical meeting here, we're gonna have to do that electronically.
What time's our general
Which we
membership meeting?
can't.
We may not be able to do that. If we don't have a quorum, we wouldn't be able to.
What time is our meeting on?
Make a motion now.
You can't do it electronically
Make a motion.
10?
We're
unless
at-
there's enough sketched out in advance at this meeting, and it doesn't sound like we will be able to.
So it sounds like we're gonna need to have
Is
another
it-
meeting
is it a
prior
Point
to
vote?
the general meeting.
If we find some candidates.
No, do you have the bylaws then?
Yes, I do.
And who's it say appoints the committee?
The board,
The actual board?
at the December membership meeting, the board shall appoint a nominating committee of at least 3 property owners.
There's two variables that could preempt that. We don't have a quorum of the general membership and or a quorum of the board.
The general membership is not appointing these people, we are.
We've never
So
done
we don't
that.
have to have a quorum in order for us to appoint people to the nominating
I
committee.
hear you. I would like to point out, we've never done it that way.
Well,
That doesn't mean we shouldn't.
legally,
So we'd have to have a quorum of the board
yes.
at the meeting to be able to do that. And so anytime we have a quorum, we can call a meeting.
We could
Although-
do it during the meeting.
Yes, except that by state law, we have to give notice of a board meeting in advance.
How much in advance?
24 hours.
Right, so it's 24 hours, and the notice would probably have to describe
just goes-
the candidates.
No, it doesn't. The notice just has to
It's
Oh,
just
all right,
as
it has to describe
doesn't have
it.
to describe the agenda, just, so we could do that on, because our notification's just over the website.
Right.
We can get past that on. I'm just trying, what humps do we have to get?
Yeah.
Gosh, we've never done it that way. Isn't that terrible?
Well, the way the bylaws are written
I hear you.
leaves us wiggle room.
Okay. All right, so, well, we'll think about that, but we need,
We could do it at
You know-
our meeting.
we could maybe, and does it specify how many people?
3.
Yeah, if you don't have 3, what do you do with that?
Wouldn't be the first time.
So,
Specifying how many, 3 people for what?
it says at least 3, right?
Yeah, of at least 3 property owners. No current board member shall be appointed to that committee.
Yeah. Okay, well, that needs to be on the agenda
For
for the general meeting. And,
And it may be that there's a mini board meeting
and we
as
could
part of
just
the general meeting.
adjourn,
Or
And,
something.
not adjourn, but convene a board.
and we
A
could
director's
ask
meeting,
for
just for that purpose.
volunteers from those in attendance at the general
Yeah, that's-
membership
that
meeting either.
always happens. So
Right.
on the agenda, it just needs to say nominating committee. I believe it does say that.
Okay, well, that's what we'll have to do then.
At least 3 on the nominating committee?
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I think since we're down to the wire on this, it would be helpful if Rhea keeps this board informed leading up to that meeting.
Who we
You
have?
know,
What
like
we have.
if someone else volunteers, or we're still down one, or this is what we're, whatever it is, we need to know exactly what's
Please
happening.
kicked back.
Okay, very good. Can we move on from nominating committee?
You don't wanna make a
That's good,
motion
but-
about this?
No, because that is supposed to be done at the general meeting.
Nominating
Oh,
committee,
Yes,
wasn't Judy on the nominating committee last time, Judy Engelhardt? Angelhardt,
She was. I believe she was.
can we ask her again?
any other ideas of
She
anybody?
was very helpful, I think.
Okay, moving on to new business.
Could I add one thing before you go?
Yes, sir.
This is just something that just occurred to me. I mean, for a long time, in the early days of trying to do things with DPPOA and other similar organizations in the county, there was established a commonly owned infrastructure advisory committee to the commissioners. That basically, for a long time, has been going defunct. And I was a member of it, and we voted this past month to just disband it. And we couldn't get any more people to join, and there was no longer any purpose for it. And, you know, it was, we couldn't keep anything going, so we just decided to call a spade a spade.
Really cold back in with you.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised at that. When was the last time, to your knowledge, that the commissioners ever asked for
Well,
a
the commissioners,
report?
the commissioners never asked for anything, but the thing is, and earlier on, whenever anything was proposed, the commissioners kind of, you know, gave you the idea that you should stay in place, and they would take care of it. anyway, there's no longer such a committee.
Coax disbanded, that's
Put
interesting.
that in your round too.
Okay, that's good. Okay, the next discussion is the general membership meeting under new business. Obviously, the nominating committee is the only thing we have going. We will discuss other things, some of the things we already talked about here, the work on the right-of-ways, and it'd just be status reports. Yes, so we need to think about what else we want to talk about. Amy?
It's not that I want to talk about it, but I think we do need to give them an update on the fee structure, since in their next February billing, there'll be another change.
You're absolutely right.
And it is described in the newsletter. So rather than passively wait for questions, we probably need to make a presentation.
So is there, you haven't developed an agenda yet.
The agenda's in the newsletter.
Do I have that here?
No,
Is
it's pretty
it, is
basic.
it in there?
That's not, no. That I know it's not in there. It's a very basic agenda, membership meeting,
It's
committee
generic, but we
reports,
always
unless
send
there's
that.
something in particular like budget approval or
And then your
nominating
buddy
committee.
who's still
So we need to
using
make
that.
sure
That's
that-
specified?
Well, yeah, we need to,
Maybe that should
I've
be a
got,
line
I've got a
item.
whole stash
Yeah.
of that.
Does it list old business or new
I've got to come
business?
back with
We'll
that
just
whole box full.
throw it in under old
Random
business.
back into.
So covenant,
Hey,
covenant,
look,
Yeah, but should that be a line
Fee
item?
structure.
in the
I mean, I'm
agenda?
going
You can't now, it's
to
already
eBay,
published.
I haven't printed it yet.
It's not.
Oh, you haven't printed it yet, that's good. Yeah, you can throw it, it should be, yeah,
Can I call it fee
under old
structure?
business.
It may actually turn out two
Covenant fee
extra people
structure.
who wouldn't come.
Thank you. God.
And not that I like doing that kind of discussion, but.
Well, you're right, I mean, we've discussed it many times at numerous meetings and in numerous newsletters. By now, it shouldn't be a surprise, but I'm sure there will be someone there who says, what do you mean? And we'll have to explain it all again, and that's fine, because
Good.
we need to do that. So we'll put it in under old business as a line item. Anything else anybody can think of?
And we're already adding nominating committee into that
Right.
agenda.
Yeah, that's in
So-
there.
That sounds good.
Always the December meeting. Yeah, I am a bit surprised that we haven't had as much, we've only had a couple of people push back on our fee structure realignment, I'll just put it that way, which I find to be very interesting. I guess most people get it, is what I take from that, I hope.
The mandatory assessment amounts were strategically chosen so that they were relatively aligned to the old dues. This is different, what's coming.
It's true, but it's been talked about for some time now and brought to the
Yes, that's
community
true.
on numerous occasions.
No, but, so I'm pointing out why there might be a distinction in reaction to come.
Could be. So explaining what the overall plan is and how at the end of the day, you're not really paying any more than you were now anyway, except that you have to pay it.
People I've
Yes, ma'am.
spoken to, a woman came in yesterday, she wasn't terribly in arrears, I think by 1 year was all, but she'd never joined the association as a volunteer member. And so she asked about the mandatory assessment, and I explained it to her, and I asked if she's been receiving our newsletters, and she admitted she receives them but doesn't read them. I stressed that she should, but she understood. When I explained how the STD had changed and what we were allowed to do with the STD money per the commissioner's arbitrary decision, and so on, she understood that. She said, well, you need money to take care of the beach and the boat ramp and the amenities. She completely. And I also explained to her that come this upcoming bill, the covenant fee was also changing. and she kind of like that. And she was not a woman that maybe could necessarily afford a great deal of money. And I told her I understood that, and that if it was absolutely, if it was needed, she could set up a payment plan. She could pay us X number of dollars a month, that we would never file a claim on somebody who was making an effort to pay. She was very willing and very open to that, and didn't seem to have any objection whatsoever.
That's good.
And since the ultimate intent is that the STD will then be correspondingly
And
going
I
down.
explained that as well to her, and
then-
that eventually, I said it will take some time to get through these changes, but that the goal is to keep it relatively the same.
You have more?
Well, I was just wondering, looking at the P&L thing some more, if we were on track for collecting the changes that went out with the bills for the current fiscal year, because it shows 4,000 collected so far on the covenant fees, but over 9,000 not collected, and 5,000 something collected on the mandatory assessments, which means almost 51,000 not
But
But
collected.
that's not right though,
So
because it's
that's what I was
mostly,
wondering about.
because I send the bills out in January, February timeframe, they're supposed to be due by March 1st, but it applies to the next fiscal year. So, I don't know why it was set up like that, but we take most of that in the last fiscal year. It's there, it
It's already
just
collected.
isn't showing.
Doesn't reflect on this.
And this is one of the many things we would like to discuss with one of our auditors, should they ever decide to respond to my emails.
So in reality, we have actually
For us more.
collected the
More,
money
a good
for
deal more.
this current
Yes,
fiscal year.
Yes, and we would like to know how to properly make that be reflected on the P&L.
Amy, you have more?
I wasn't going to put my 2 cents in on this one as well, but I think I better. Gary, leading up to the road committee meeting, which will be next week, should be before the general meeting, I suggest that we be really clear about what fiscal year the bills go out for the different funding streams and what fiscal year they apply to, because I think that they aren't all aligned. Some of them are 6 months,
Out of sync.
and somehow, when we explain to the community that their STD bill will drop, we need to know how long they're hanging in parallel, and at this point, I'm never sure. So we at least have to get our own act together, and so that we can clearly state something to the community.
But I'll put that together. I've already researched it. But
Yeah,
I was
I'm not-
confused as well until I researched it, so
See,
I'll make sure I have it right.
this is really the most needlessly, it's not needless, but I have never seen a budget that was different fiscal years for the different funding streams and the different expenditures. And you have to really have a scorecard all the time.
Yep.
Okay.
So but the question still remains. So how much do you think if you had to put a percentage on it, how much have we collected of the mandatory assessment?
Of
50, 60, 70%?
62%, I believe, is the number of what we would have deemed members in good standing. I don't know how we're going to refer to them now, but owners who have paid all of their fees.
Those are members in good standing.
62%, I think is the last percentage I figured out.
Yeah, how
Which
does
is
that,
higher than the percentage we used to get for the voluntary dues. By a good amount, by 200 people.
because part of the whole assumption here is that the people will be paying, and therefore we will have more members in good standing, and so on. And so that was why I asked the question, so that we know and we'll be able to tell the community if it is asked that, yes, we do have a higher percentage of people who are paying these new fees.
That's a good point,
And are eligible to vote.
very, very good point, Dan.
That's where I was heading with that question.
Okay. moving off to general meeting, general membership meeting then. And the next one is the nationwide insurance proposal. Who's gonna talk to that? We have, I'm gonna let you talk to it, because you know the numbers, and I don't.
Well, we
They
know
were on
Ralph
the
Smartwood.
last, meeting
We did,
minutes, weren't they?
but he hadn't yet reviewed it. He was going to review it the next
He's not
day.
reviewed it?
He has now reviewed it. That would be Ralph Swartwood, who's a former insurance agent. And he recommends that we go ahead with the nationwide insurance proposal, which is significantly less. The reason that it's so much less is that they provide a business policy. I'm not quite sure what that means, but it's a business policy versus what we were provided with from the other companies.
Well, we are a corporation.
Right. And just to refresh your memories, for our directors and officers liability insurance, we have through Travelers, we were paying $3,939. Nationwide can offer it to us for $2,806, which is about $1,100 less. Cincinnati Insurance has our liability right now for $4,111. We will get it through Nationwide for $526. They put these two together. It's all through Nationwide versus separating the two. Maybe that's why it's, in part why it's so much less.
I'm not a student of any of this, but either we've been duped in the past or it's too good to be true now, but I presume
He
Ralph.
said Nationwide is a good company, it's a reliable company. He compared the policies, how much are we getting versus how much are we being proposed? It's the same. So, that's it.
So with that information, would someone like to make a motion that we change? Wait,
I will.
before we do that, when's the term?
January 1st.
Okay, now,
I will make a motion that we switch our insurance coverages to the nationwide insurance. And since the old policy expires at the end of December, then I don't think it makes any sense to try to rush for the last month. But for the renewal of the policy, my motion is that we open up a new policy with Nationwide instead of with our previous Travelers in Cincinnati.
okay, have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion, anybody want to discuss it further?
Have we had any claims in the past, Gary?
Yes, we have. One of our contractors dug up a
Oh,
telephone line.
I remember
Yeah,
that. Was it a big
yes,
cost?
And it was
it was
covered?
expensive,
Wow.
and it
That
was
was,
covered.
that was just.
It was
this past
negotiated
year.
and covered,
What was it?
just this last year. I think It was
It was
close to
big.
$10,000 and they negotiated it down, right?
Remember, it was up over 5,000 and they negotiated it down to 4,000 and something, but I don't
Good.
have the exact number in my head.
Okay.
And then we had, do we have any talk about?
The road sign.
And the road sign, yes, of course.
Well, that
Oh,
was,
that's right.
that was covered.
That was covered, it wasn't
That
our,
wasn't ours, that was the lady.
well, yeah, we did claim it through ours and they got
Yes,
reimbursed.
that was our insurance company.
But then they
Thank
went
you.
out to the
Yeah.
ladies.
Oh, yes, they
And-
did a good job.
Yeah, they got their money back. Okay, further discussion, call for the vote, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, okay, very good, thank you. Save a couple bucks, that's good. We could do more work on the office.
So,
Are we on the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday?
First
are we gonna try to schedule another meeting prior to the general meeting?
I don't think so. Do you think we
Why,
do?
you have something in mind?
I don't think we do.
Well, I think we had still left that question slightly open regarding the nominating
Well, I thought
committee.
that if we couldn't do that, we'd have to do it after the meeting, I think.
Mm.
No, we'd have to, we've got to do it after the meeting.
We have to do
We-
it by the meeting.
Yeah,
No, at the meeting, it says.
Well, it says they'll be appointed at the meeting, but we could, at the meeting, announce the board has appointed these individuals if the board votes on it prior to the general meeting taking place. The way it's worded allows us to actually do a board vote at the meeting itself.
Well, I think
but-
that's what we're gonna do. we'll have a meeting,
Yeah.
we'll have a meeting before the general meeting.
Yeah, or
So
15
we'll have
minutes
to get that
before
word
or
out.
something.
Yeah, just to do that. Okay, so one, that'll be the first Tuesday of, have you got
What
it?
day
January
is
the
that?
6th.
6th,
6th.
January 6th. January 6th.
Yep.
Wait a second. Not that you need me here. I will be here, good. Okay.
Are you
Public
going
com-
away for some long time?
I'm going away for a Christmas holiday that's only 4 days long in Waynesboro. Not a big deal.
Everyone comes and goes like that.
Yeah. Any more public comment?
Yeah, just one comment.
Go ahead.
Seems like there's peace in the valley, and I like it, and it's very nice. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion to adjourn,
I'll move.
I second.
and all those opposed?
This, yeah.